So I got a question about Greene, who has been contemplating to go vegan after watching Game Changers. A documentary I have not watched yet, I'm not particularly interested in watching it, but it does bring up a very interesting question, which is, what is possible on a vegan diet? Can a vegan be Mister Olympia? Can a vegan be stage ready? Of course vegans can be stage ready, but you know, can a vegan be a 250-pound lean shredded beast? You know, can they compete at the top? That's the question for today. And for one, I will say that one's muscle building results on a vegan diet are largely determined by one's ability to digest plant protein, which for most people really isn't a problem. You know, with some exceptions here or there. If anything, some people actually do better on a vegan diet. I know that for myself, I was able to gain weight more easily on a plant-based diet. And this was not like fat mass, you know, this was lean mass. So, for some people, a vegan diet might actually be better for gains. But some people have a hard time digesting things like legumes. And I think that for good results on a plant-based diet, especially if building muscle is the goal, you should have the ability to digest these things. Unless you want to depend on mock meats, but I would highly recommend you to not do that for multiple reasons. They're bad for your health, they're bad for you know, your digestion, and in my opinion they taste bad. I don't like them. But other than that, there's really nothing that's going to stop you from gaining a lot of mass on a vegan diet. Nothing. The next thing that we will have to address is supplementation. Do you need supplementation if you want to be a high-leveled vegan athlete or bodybuilder? Sure. Yes. But then again, who doesn't? Consider that it is extremely rare for an athlete, natural or not, who is, you know, competing in the top of their sport, who takes no supplements whatsoever. And you know, if keto or carnivore diets would be foolproof to this, then no one on such a diet would supplement. But we know that these people also need supplements. Even the people that say that you don't need to supplement anything on such a diet, like Frank Zane, they will still supplement things on their diets. So supplementation, I mean, for optimal results, yeah, it's extremely common. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you're vegan or not. Then again, you could wonder, if you are on steroids, you know, if you're on a heap of steroids, does it really matter if you take supplements or not? I mean, at that point, what does it matter? So the next thing that I really want to address is just how exclusive the Mister Olympia title really is. I believe in all of history we've had like 14 Mister Olympia, so that is like since the 60s. You know, a really crazy low number. And even Greene has never won a Mister Olympia. Now that's probably partly because of a certain reputation that he has. But other than that, you know, the guy is extremely massive and he never won the title. Again, like I said, it is an extremely exclusive title. Only like 14 people have ever won the Mister Olympia. And you could say like there's never been a vegan Mister Olympia yet. But I would say there's never been a keto or carnivore Mister Olympia either. And that is because ketosis is not a favorable situation for bodybuilding. Or muscle growth in general, really. Now, you know, cutting carbs before competition, sure. You know, doing a low carb diet, okay. That is very different than doing a ketogenic diet. And I think even like Arnold was fairly low carb, but he was far from doing keto. Yeah. And And let's address what it actually means to be a Mr. Olympia, not just a bodybuilder, but no, on the absolute peak. You know, again, on the absolute peak of this sport. You know, but if we are really going to think, like, what is possible, what is the absolute peak, what we know now, currently know, is possible in terms of gaining muscle mass. Because, you know, being a Mr. Olympia competitor in the golden age, the age of Arnold, means something very different from being one of the biggest bodybuilders of today's era. And to put things in perspective, Arnold, at his absolute peak on stage in 1974, was about 250 pounds. And that translates into a little bit over 110 kilos, I believe. And he had that weight at 6'2". So reasonably tall man. And nowadays we will have people that are stage ready at the same weight, sure, but they are half a feet shorter than Arnold. So quite a difference, quite a dramatic difference. So in order for me to have a similar amount of lean body mass as Arnold would have back then, I would probably have to be around 90 kilos and have to be shredded, you know. 90 kilos at 5'8", shredded. Then I'd look similar to Arnold in some case. Now I have a very different bone structure than Arnold, so I would not, even at like 110 kilos, I would look very different than Arnold. But yeah, we can see this when we look at Frank Zane, for example, another man from the golden era, another Mr. Olympia. He was a Mr. Olympia, he was one of the like 14 guys. And he has a very similar bone structure to mine, you know, very small bones, tiny bones. And he had, proportionally speaking, less muscle than Arnold, and he weighed about 84 kilos, which is, honestly, it's not even that much heavier than I am. It's about 25 pounds heavier than I am currently. No, wait, actually, that is about 30 pounds heavier than I am currently. Now, of course, you know, he was shredded at that weight, but yeah. And, you know, again, Arnold has a very large bone structure, so, you know, the weight looks different on him. And actually, if you have bigger bones, it's easier for you to gain muscle mass, from what I understand. And I don't think I have to explain more than that. I really don't. I don't think that I really have to explain more than that in the context of veganism and bodybuilding, because these guys were at their absolute peak of their generation, and they were doing everything they could to be like that. Okay, everything. They were taking a heap of shit. And to answer the question if a vegan can at least look like that, yes! No doubt. Absolutely. 100%. And that is just not a wild guess. We simply know that people can look like that because we already have people looking like that. I mean, Simna Nutrition, Brian Turner, especially Nimal Delgado, you know, okay, they're not Mr. Olympia ready, sure, they're not... they don't look like Frank Zane, okay, fine. But, you know, especially someone like Nimal Delgado, who has never eaten meat in his entire life, from what I understand, will probably be able to outdo Frank Zane at some point. And is Nimal on steroids? Sure, likely, but, you know, every single bodybuilding legend is on steroids, so that's nothing new. At least since steroids became a thing. And the truth be told, there are already bigger vegan guys than Nimal Delgado. Those people already exist. Just because they're not getting the same kind of attention as Nimal is getting, doesn't mean that they don't exist. There are already people that you can point to and you can say, yeah, person does a vegan diet and he's bigger than Nimai, and Nimai is an absolute beast. And, you know, I don't know, I think that if I would take a cycle of testosterone, you know, the most basic cycle, I would probably gain about 20 pounds. You know, a lot of that would be bloating, but from what I understand, it's not weird to maintain like 8 pounds of that after your cycle. And, you know, you will essentially add like 8 pounds of lean body mass after your first cycle. After a basic cycle, mind you. So, that considered, you know, that's a basic cycle. Like, let's think if I would take a heap of steroids, like a shit ton of them, like go totally whack with it for a year. Would I look like Frank Zane within a year? I don't really see why not. Now maybe I'm underestimating it, but it would not be insane to expect that I would gain 30 pounds of lean body mass at that point. And, you know, that is like within a year. I mean, within time, if I would do that, if I would take steroids for years upon years, then yeah, eventually I will look like a stage-ready Frank Zane. No doubt. Yeah, in terms of building fat-free mass, a vegan can absolutely achieve these things. Again, that has already been proven. However, we are not talking about bodybuilders from the golden age era, right? We are talking about Mister Olympias from this day and age, Mister Olympia athletes. And those guys have about 70 pounds on Mister Olympias from the golden age era. So that's quite a huge difference. Yeah. But why is that? Why is that? What is the reason behind that? Is it because of their diet? No. Nutrition hasn't really changed that much. Something else is going on. You know, what you gotta understand is that bodybuilding in today's society, today's era, it's not so much about being aesthetic anymore. Like, people like Frank Zane and Arnold, they looked very aesthetic. For the last few decades, it has been about adding as much mass as possible. Sure, there is still an element of aestheticness, of being aesthetic, but the most important thing of all is building mass, gaining fat-free, lean muscle. And again, nutrition hasn't really changed in that aspect. Even like supplementation, yeah, maybe. I assume that creatine has become more popular, but what you gotta understand is that these golden era athletes, they were taking steroids, supplements, they were eating very clean, well, whatever. These beasts from today's era, they are essentially doing the same, but they're doing something else as well. What they're doing, for example, is they take a lot of growth hormone. And that does not only grow your muscles, I mean, it grows your organs, your tissues, and that's like the primary reason that so many of these bodybuilders have like a balloon belly, right? They call it growth hormone gut. And they can also get that from insulin, and that's something I will address later on as well, because that's kind of interesting. And also like synthol. Like, synthol use has also become a lot more common. Like, I don't even know if it was really around in the golden age. But nowadays, yeah, they use synthol. And I'm 99.9% certain that Arnold was not using synthol. Frank Zane wasn't using synthol. You know, and these things also add a lot of mass, depending on how you use it, right? So these things make a huge difference, and this is the main difference between, you know, bodybuilders from the golden era and bodybuilders from this era. It's not just like steroid abuse, it's like complete abuse of multiple substances. And I also assume that the amount that these guys are taking has also increased quite dramatically over the decades, but I cannot say that with certainty. You know, at least like in aspects of like growth hormone and possibly insulin and yeah, Synthol. At least those things, you know, use has become a lot more common now within the sport. So that's kind of an interesting topic, by the way. Like insulin usage within bodybuilding, it's quite common, especially again for these like huge beasts. And if you didn't know, taking insulin while not eating a heap ton of carbs can kill you. It's not a smart idea to do that. So, yeah. That considered, we should ask if a keto or a carnivore diet can actually, you know, help you to reach these results like Ronnie Coleman or Greene. You know, like, can someone on such a diet actually reach that level? Because I don't think so. I'm highly skeptical that that is possible at all. I'm confident enough to just say that no, you cannot do that. You know, and to answer if a vegan can achieve Olympus status, like in the current day and age, yeah, absolutely. But why haven't we seen that yet? You know, that's a valid question. Because, to my knowledge, there is not really a bodybuilder that big yet who is on a vegan diet. And you gotta understand a few things. For one, there aren't many vegans to begin with. Very few vegans. But even less of those vegans engage in physical activity. Okay? But even less of those vegans that engage in physical activity are bodybuilders. But even then, out of all the people that exist on this planet, even less people want to look like a freaky balloon animal. So just by doing the math, you can understand that it's very, you know, the chances are small. It simply has to do with the amount of people that are on this diet, and it has to do with the amount of people that want to look like that, which is an extremely small amount. And even if you want to look like that, that's not to say that you will end up looking like that, okay? Like, it's more than just taking steroids, okay? Like, it's not as if, like, you can take the steroids and you will just blow up. Everyone that takes the same cycle as Greene does will end up looking like Greene. Like, that's not how it works, okay? Like, there is a lot of dedication to it. There's a lot of, like, eating plans, you know, it's a lot of, you know, thinking about what you're doing. So even if you have, and even if you have the ability to do everything like Greene, that still is not like to say that you will look like that, even in a decade. So, with that being said, again, it's just a matter of doing the math. If you do the math, you can kind of understand why the chance of a vegan Mister Olympia, especially like becoming an actual Mister Olympia, is just like almost zero. And even like becoming a Mister Olympia level athlete, a bodybuilder, yeah, the chances are just very, very slim. That's just what it is. And, you know, here's something that anti-vegans really need to understand, okay? I really want to hit this one home. Most of these vegan bodybuilders, you know, you can say like, oh, why is Nimal Delgado not looking like Greene? Why is John Venus not looking like Jay Cutler, why is no one of these silly vegans, why do none of them look like Dorian Yates? Have you ever stopped to think that that could be because these people do not want to look like that? Again, like, someone that actually wants to look like that, those people are very, very, very rare. Okay? And if anything, someone like Nimal Delgado will not, they will not want to look like a freak who has his straps up to his ears and, has a round protruding gut belly, growth hormone belly. I mean, can you imagine that Nimal Delgado would have a body like that? I mean, he wants to be an aesthetic person. Most people would say that is not aesthetic. And it is something completely different. That is just what it is. What people like Nimai and John and Brian Turner, what they want to achieve is they want to look natural to the point that it's barely believable. And I'd say that they are killing it in that regard. They are absolutely smashing it. They are doing amazingly well. They want to look more like, the people like Jeff Seed, or can I only name one of those people? Jeff Seed, Z's. They want to look like that. They don't want to look like a balloon animal. And we already have like vegan strongman, very successful vegan strongman. I think that alone should kind of put this whole debate at rest. I mean, you have people like Clarence Kennedy, and that person barely has a meat-eating equal, let alone a carnivore dieter equal. So we already have those people, but we have those people because wanting to be strong, that is being a strong man, that is way more common than wanting to be a balloon animal. Again, it has to do with the math of things. And these vegan strongmen, again, they're not doing any bit worse than their meat-eating counterparts. These vegan bodybuilders, they want to look like a Jeff Seed, a Z's, a Simeon Panda, Ulias Jr., whatever. That's their goal. And again, they're doing really well in that regard. The moment that we're going to, as veganism is going to grow, you will have more and more people that will want to look like a K. Greene. And eventually, within it kind of depends, but probably within like a decade or so, you will have like a vegan K. Greene. I'm almost 100% convinced of that. Yeah, let's also address K. Greene specifically, because I saw something pretty interesting mentioned by Sean Baker. Sean Baker says that what K. Greene is doing, like, he is thinking on the end of his career to go vegan, and it's going to make him a little bit more money, just let him stay a little bit more relevant, and at that point it doesn't really matter if he's going to lose some weight. But that also kind of shows that K. Greene is likely going to lose muscle mass after this. Is that related to the vegan diet? Well, my opinion on that really matters, again, like on who he is as an individual. It depends on what he personally does with a vegan diet. I assume that someone of his status can definitely get like help to do a proper vegan diet. I mean, he's not a Hodge twin, he's not someone that's going to do a vegan diet for a month and is going to totally mess it up. Like, this guy, he is on another level. He knows a lot better what he's doing. And if he wants, he can get the professional help. He can get like professional dietitians or whatever, professional nutritionists in the area of veganism on doing a plant-based diet. And in that sense, he's covered. And will he lose mass? Again, he's at the end of his career, so chances are that he will lose mass, sure. I mean, someone like Jim Morris, for example, he, before his dad, 15 years before his dad, he was a vegetarian, and he transitioned to a vegan diet, and like at the end of his life cycle, he still looked amazing. He was really big, and like he was in his 70s, and he was huge for his age, and he was, you know, in his last few years, he was on a vegan diet. So, that considering that, will Greene shrink to nothingness? Yeah, highly unlikely. Will he lose some weight? Again, taking into account that he's on the end of his career. Yeah, I'd say so, that it's somewhat likely that that will happen. So yeah, that's the video. So really anything that I still want to address? Like, I got a few points mentioned on my laptop, like, that I wanted to address. But, yeah, no, I think that's everything. That's all that I really want to address. Yeah, thanks for watching the video. Have a nice day, everyone. And, yeah, you know, enjoy your weekend. That's all I really have to share. Goodbye.